Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Have you ever considered how easily a rumor, maybe a seemingly harmless prediction, can ripple through a society? How it can trigger real-world consequences, even when, scientific facts completely contradict it? Today, we're going to unpack a fascinating case that explores exactly that. It shows how what looks like a local story actually reveals some, universal human patterns. But looking at a recent event in Hong Kong, there was this viral manga prophecy about a huge tsunami striking Japan on July 5th, 2025, and it sparked widespread concern. The Economist explored this, and they suggested Hong Kong is super superstitious, with ancient traditions and diviners holding significant sway.
Right. And that article, it definitely highlighted some undeniable facts, like how that single rumor led to palpable fear and, crucially, measurable economic impacts. But as we sort of dig into this, you'll see the true story is, it's far more nuanced. It reflects global tendencies much more than just unique cultural quirks, I think. It really challenges us, to think about how information spreads, how we react to uncertainty, and maybe what truly shapes our collective behavior.
Okay, so let's start with what the Economist article did get right. There were definitely real, tangible consequences from this prediction. Can you walk us through some of those?
Absolutely. So the rumor itself, this mega tsunami, it came from a Japanese manga artist, Tatsuki Ryo. She'd made a prediction back in 1999 about a great disaster. And many people felt that was, sort of confirmed by the huge Japan earthquake and tsunami in 2011.
Ah, right. So there was a precedent in people's minds.
Exactly. So when she later predicted another mega tsunami, specifically for July 5th, 2025, those tremors of fear spread right across Asian social media. It wasn't just Japan.
And Hong Kongers, it seems, took it particularly seriously. What was the impact there?
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just chatter. You had prominent feng shui masters in Hong Kong actually warning locals, telling them, heed the advice, don't visit Japan around that time.
Wow. So real advice from figures people listen to.
Yes. And it wasn't a minor thing. It led to a really significant, measurable drop in travel. The number of Hong Kong visitors to Japan, it plunged. More than a third down in June compared to the year before. And this was while visitor numbers from most other places were actually going up.
So a clear, isolated drop.
A very clear drop. And that hits the economy, right? Local airlines, Greater Bay Airlines, Hong Kong Airlines, they actually had to cut or suspend flights to Japan. Why? Weak demand.
Because people just weren't booking.
Exactly. And you have to remember, Hong Kong is Japan's fifth largest source of international visitors. They spend something like $4 billion a year there. So that kind of dip, it's keenly felt. We even heard anecdotes like a financial consultant based in Hong Kong said his boss just refused point blank to have any in-person meetings in Japan for the whole summer.
Okay, so there's no denying it. This prophecy had real-world bite. It affected travel, business, and The Economist also points to other things they see as, evidence of pervasive superstition in Hong Kong to build their case.
That's right. The article mentions things like tower blocks often skipping floors with the number 4, because in Cantonese, its pronunciation sounds a bit like the word for death.
A common practice, I've heard.
Yes, and it's not just anecdotal. There's econometric work statistical analysis, basically showing that flats considered haunted, they can sell for way less, like a 20 to 40% discount. That's a serious financial impact. And the article even brings up feng shui practices influencing, big corporate headquarters. HSBC's atrium is mentioned. Apparently, even The Economist's own offices there have some old coins and a dragon image for luck.
Interesting detail about their own office. Yet, despite all this apparent belief, the official channels did push back, right? They used science.
They did. The Hong Kong Observatory, Japan's meteorological agency, they repeatedly stated the facts. Earthquake prediction is, scientifically speaking, impossible right now. Even the manga artist herself, Tatsuki Ryo, she apparently cautioned fans to listen to the scientific advice.
But it didn't really seem to cut through the noise, did it?
Not according to The Economist's framing, no. They drew a parallel.
Yeah.
Remember the 2003 SARS outbreak? They mentioned reports that many Hong Kongers turned to traditional herbs instead of official disease prevention advice.
Right, I remember that being discussed at the time.
So the article's conclusion is pretty stark.
Yeah.
Superstition, when it overrides science, can have frightening consequences.
Okay, let's really get into this now. The central claim. Hong Kong, as uniquely superstitious, is that fair? Is this level of, let's call it superstition, genuinely an outlier compared to other places?
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. Yeah. Because that idea that Hong Kong is somehow exceptionally superstitious, It kind of overreaches. Like, this stuff isn't uniquely Hong Kong. It's not even uniquely Asian. It's human.
Yeah.
Think about the U.S. How many tall buildings skip the 13th floor?
Yeah, almost all of them, right?
Almost all of them. Estimates suggest something like 85% of multi-story buildings globally just omit it. Even in super modern Manhattan, only about 9% of condo buildings with 13 or more stories actually label a 13th floor. So what does that tell you? It shows that these kinds of practices, these, maybe call them cognitive habits or sensitivities, they're global. It's not confined to one city or one culture.
That's a really powerful point. It reframes it completely. So skipping a floor number in New York isn't fundamentally different from considering feng shui in Hong Kong, perhaps. And what about the supposed confirmation of the prophecy? That wasn't quite right either, was it?
Not at all. Tatsuki Ryo's prediction was for July 5th. That day came and went. Nothing major happened. Then, later, much later, July 30th, there was a big earthquake, M8.8 off Russia. It triggered Pacific tsunami alerts. But it was a totally separate event. Different time, different place.
But people connect to them anyway.
Exactly. This is a classic example of what psychologists call post-hoc matching or confirmation bias. Social media didn't care about the missed date. It just grabbed onto this later unrelated event and said, see, validation. It absolutely fuels panic, but it's not genuine confirmation of the original prediction. Not even close.
Okay, this is where it feels like the story really shifts. Because it seems like something fundamental might have been missed in just focusing on superstition. You're suggesting it's not just about what people believe, but maybe more about who they trust.
I think that's absolutely crucial. The article focused heavily on belief, right? Belief in superstition. But there's another huge factor here, often overlooked. Institutional trust. If you look at recent surveys in Hong Kong, trust in the government is quite low. Somewhere around 22 to 27% say they trust it.
That low.
Yeah,
Right.
and that low level of institutional trust, it's a really significant variable. We see this pattern globally. In past health crises, for instance, low trust is strongly associated with people being more susceptible to rumors and less likely to follow official advice. It helps explain why the official debunking from the Hong Kong Observatory, even though scientifically sound, struggled. It struggled to compete with a viral manga panel shared by friends and family.
So it's not just about, do I believe science? It's, do I trust the person telling me the science?
Precisely. Especially if there's maybe underlying skepticism about official sources for historical or political reasons, trust is key.
Okay, so the why behind the panic, it's less about a unique cultural superstition and maybe much more about these broader things like how information flows online and this trust deficit.
Exactly. And you can't ignore the platform dynamics either. How did this rumor spread?
Yeah.
Well, the prophecy, even if it was a hoax, repackaging older stuff, was highly shareable. It was dramatic, visual, scary, perfect for social media.
Catnip for clicks.
Totally. Whereas a careful scientific debunk, it's often dry, it's nuanced, it just doesn't travel as fast or as far online. That's just how these platforms often work, unfortunately. The dramatic stuff often wins the attention race. And then there's the market exposure angle we touched on. Hong Kong is a top 5 market for Japan, and Hong Kong travelers are known to be quite price and time sensitive. So when a superstition-fueled rumor causes demand to dip there, it hits specific airline routes hard and fast. That explains the quick flight cuts.
It connects the dots between the rumor and the very specific economic impact we saw. And those corporate feng shui examples, like HSBC, we shouldn't read too much into them as pure determinism either.
I think that's right. It's fair to note them, sure. Feng shui flourishes in corporate design. They happen, but often it's about, branding, creating a culturally comfortable environment, aesthetics. It exists alongside world-class engineering, hard-nosed profit logic, global finance strategies. We should probably see it more as symbolism or cultural sensitivity, coexisting with business, not fundamentally driving it in opposition to logic.
Okay. So bringing this all together, how should we really interpret what happened in Hong Kong? If it's not just they're super superstitious, what's a fairer take?
I think a fairer interpretation is this. What happened says less about Hong Kong being uniquely ultra-superstitious, and much more about how environments with low institutional trust and high uncertainty. Well, in those environments, sticky myths and rumors can easily outcompete drier scientific risk guidance. And that pattern, we see it everywhere. Think about American buildings quietly skipping the 13th floor. Think about people turning to unproven cures during pandemics anywhere in the world.
So Hong Kong wasn't an outlier. It was almost typical.
In that sense, yes. It's typical of how human psychology grapples with risk and uncertainty, especially when trust in official channels is low. The really interesting story here isn't really about a city uniquely obsessed with prophecy. It's about information cascades, the crucial role of institutional trust, and specific market exposure dynamics.
That really does shift the narrative. It makes it much more universal. So if this is a broader human thing, a challenge we all face, what could actually help next time something like this happens? Are there practical takeaways here?
I think there are definitely concrete steps we can think about. First, maybe shifting from debunking after the fact to pre-bunking before it happens.
Pre-bunking. Tell me more.
Yeah, like officials, tourism boards, airlines, they could proactively put out simple, clear explainers. Things like, you can't predict earthquakes, here's why, before peak travel seasons. Pair that with clear info about what real, legitimate warnings do look and sound like. The Hong Kong Observatory's posts were good, scientifically sound. But they were kind of late to the party. The meme had already spread.
Get ahead of the curve, basically.
Exactly. And second, maybe tourism boards and airlines could work together more proactively, like pre-agree on what they'll do if a rumor cycle spikes. Maybe some rapid response insurance, joint messaging campaigns, perhaps limited fare waivers to sort of dampen the panic cancellations, coordinated action.
That makes sense, a sort of emergency comms plan for rumors. And finally, it sounds like a key point is treating these beliefs, these superstitions, as, well, as a variable to be understood, not just dismissed.
Precisely. Don't treat it as a punchline. If we know that certain cultural stigmas or heuristics, like worries about the number 4 or ghosts or maybe the 13th floor, if we know these things actually influence behavior and move real money, then maybe we should factor them into planning and pricing models, just like developers quietly do with the 13th floor. It's about understanding human behavior as a factor in the system, not just waving it away as irrational.
This whole exploration has really peeled back the layers, hasn't it? The story of Hong Kong's superstition seems far more complex than just that simple label. It's not really about a unique cultural trait, but more about these universal human ways of thinking, colliding with really important issues like trust, how information flows, and market forces.
It really does make you think more critically, doesn't it, when you see information, or maybe myth information, spreading that fast. It often shines a light on underlying vulnerabilities, how societies process risk, how they grapple with truth. And that's not unique to one place. It's a global challenge.
So a final thought for you listening. What stands out to you from this? How do your own beliefs, or maybe the narratives swirling around in your own society, how do they influence your decisions when things feel uncertain? Especially when you're also hearing scientific information worth considering. Thank you for joining us for this compelling exploration today.